Hey there and welcome. Today we are going to talk about manipulating two-step equations and inequalities to get solutions. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so here is the first problem that we have today. So our problem itself is 5 minus 2b equals negative 5. And so the first thing that we should really do is figure out what our variable is, and that just so happens to be b. Remember that our variable is our letter or our symbol to represent the unknown. The next thing we should do is really figure out what is happening to that variable. We can see right here that we have negative 2b, and when the number and the variable are stuck together like that, we are doing multiplication. So we're going to say that we are multiplying by negative 2, which means that our inverse is going to be that we are going to divide by negative 2. If we're going to multiply by negative, we have to divide by negative. The next thing that we are doing is dealing with this 5 over here. And this 5 is a little on the confusing side because there really isn't any sign going with it. But we're actually adding 5 to the variable, which means that the inverse of that is going to be to subtract 5 to the variable. And I like to use this thing that I like to call the circle of don't touch. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, it's going to be our variable and whatever is with it. So in this case, negative 2b. We have to make sure that negative is part of it though. And I call it the circle of don't touch because it really tells me what I need to deal with first. If it's inside the circle, I'm not going to touch it. So what's outside the circle is going to be that 5. And we said that we needed to subtract 5 from both sides. So right here, I'm going to minus 5 and then minus 5. 5 minus 5 eliminates, it gives me 0. I'm going to bring that circle of don't touch down. And then I have negative 5 minus 5, which gives me negative 10. All right, so I used my inverse of subtracting 5 from both sides, which means all that's left now is to divide both sides by negative 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Over here, I'm going to divide by negative 2. And over here, I'm going to divide by negative 2. And negative 2 divided by negative 2 gives me a positive 1, which is why we need to divide by the negative. So I'm left with a positive 1b, or just b. That's fine as well. Equals negative 10 divided by negative 2 gives me a positive 5. Now we've divided both sides by negative 2. The next thing that we need to do is check our answer because we have the ability to make sure that we're actually correct. So I'm just going to write check. And the number that I'm checking is a positive 5 because that's what we got as our answer. And so I'm first going to rewrite the problem. So 5 minus 2b equals negative 5. And I'm going to replace that b with the 5 that we got. So I'm going to say 5 minus 2 times 10, or not 10, 5, equals negative 5. I need to do that negative 2 times 5 first, which gives me negative 10 equals 5. And 5 minus 10 is negative 5. Nope. Oh, I messed up back here. That should be a negative 5. My apologies. So if negative 5 equals negative 5. I got the same number on both sides, so my check works out, which tells me that b equals 5 is going to be the correct answer for this problem. All right, so that's that one. Let's check out a different one. Still a two-step equation. Oh, well, this one's a two-step inequality. But it's set up a little bit differently. So let's try this one out. Again, the first thing that we need to do is see what our variable is, and in this case, it's an a. Now we have to figure out what is happening to this a and the inverse. So I can see that I am dividing by 4. Right there we are dividing by 4. So the inverse of that is to multiply by 4. I can also see that I am adding 2, and the inverse of that is to subtract 2. And my circle of don't touch on this one is going to be a divided by 4. Right? Again, for the most part, not always, your circle of don't touch is going to be your variable and whatever's with it, like directly with it. That plus sign puts that 2 farther away, so it's not going to be stuck with it. Because this 4 is part of my circle of don't touch, I can't mess with it right now. Which means I need to deal with that minus 2 on both sides. So I'm going to subtract 2 here and subtract 2 over here. 6 minus 2 gives me 4. I'm going to bring down that inequality symbol. I have a divided by 4, and then 2 minus 2 gives me 0. So now I have dealt with subtracting 2 to both sides. Now, that was weird. Now I need to focus on that multiplying both sides by 4. So I'm going to multiply by 4 over here. I'm going to multiply by 4 over here. And I have 4 times 4, which gives me 16. I'm going to keep my sign the way it's going. And a divided by 4 times 4, well, this part here is going to give me some fancy 1, so I'm left with a. Now, you have the choice of keeping your answer this way, which is totally fine. But I also know that we're super used to having the variable show up first. So, if you want to write the variable going first, you absolutely can. But we need to make sure that our inequality symbol is still going the correct direction. So as we can see right now, it is opening up towards the 16, which means when we put that variable first, it still needs to open up towards the 16. So it's going to look like this. So the top one says 16 is greater than a, which means that 16 is the biggest number that you can have. Technically, you can't actually have 16. You can have 15.99999 going on forever. So we're just going to round that up to 16. And so then this bottom one says that a has to be smaller than 16. So they both are saying the same exact thing. So now we need to check. And for this check, we're going to check the number 16 because that was the answer that we got. So we're going to start with that original problem. I'm going to zoom out just a smidge so I can actually get it to fit. There we go. So my original problem was 6 is greater than a over 4 plus 2. But I'm going to replace that a with the value that we got, which was 16. And now I'm going to simplify from here. So I have 6 is greater than 16 divided by 4 gives me 4 plus 2. So I have 6 is greater than 4 plus 2 gives me 6. And while 6 is not greater than 6, because a number can't be bigger than itself, the fact that I have the same number on both sides tells me that I found the right number as my answer. 16 is the correct value that we need to have. But now we need to make sure that our sign is going in the correct direction. So we need to check a different number. So we can check a bigger number, we can check a smaller number. It's completely your choice. You can check both. And I usually highly encourage checking both, just in case you mess up in your math somewhere. My personal favorite number to check is going to be 0. And I'll show you why in a moment. I have to figure out whether or not the 0 is going to be bigger or smaller than the 16 that we got. And 0 is very obviously smaller than 16, so I'm going to write small next to it so that I remember 0 is the smaller number. So again, I'm going to rewrite my problem. So 6 is greater than a over 4 plus 2. And again, instead of a, I'm replacing it, I am substituting it with the 0 that we got, or that we are choosing to check. Remember, inequalities have an infinite number of answers, right? So we are choosing just a random number that may or may not be part of the solution set, and we have to determine whether or not it is. So let's go ahead and simplify. So I have 6 is greater than 0 divided by 4 is just 0. And that's why it's my favorite number to check. It just makes everything a lot easier. It's normally either going to multiply or divide to 0, or you're going to add and subtract to nothing. Like you're adding or subtracting nothing extra. And so that's why it's my favorite number to check. So I have 6 is greater than 0 plus 2 gives me 2. So now I have to think, is 6 bigger than 2? And it in fact is. That's a true statement. Because I have a true statement, that tells me that smaller is where my variable needs to be, right? It needs to be smaller than the 16. And this right here is telling me that a has to be smaller than 16. So I know that my answer is correct. The very last thing that we need to do is graph this inequality. And there's a lot of different ways that people prefer graphing. I personally just care that you have the number for your answer on your graph. That's really all I care. Some people want you to put the 0 on there. Some people want you to count by all these different numbers. Do whatever you need to do, but this is all that I really truly care for. So I need to figure out if this is going to be an open circle or a closed circle, and because it's just less than, it's going to be an open circle. If it was less than or equal to, it would be closed, but it doesn't have that equality. 16 is not technically actually one of our answers, so the open circle signifies that. And remember, we said that the answer had to be smaller. So I need to shade my number line in the direction where the numbers are going to be smaller. And so that's going to be to the left, which in reality is why a lot of people prefer that you draw in that 0 to help you remember which way the numbers are smaller and which way they're bigger. Completely your choice. But so we have that a is less than 16, and then we have the graph that signifies that. And that's all that we have. So until next time, I'll see you later. Love you, bye.